Hi guys, I've tried to record this video 8 times now, so hopefully now it will go through. Okay, the Pluto return is happening today, July 11th, 2022, and this is a big deal. And I'm going to walk you through a presentation that I did some time ago so that, and we'll just pick up where it left off. Okay, so this is the Pluto return is here. And this is from right after the first Pluto return, which happened on February the 20th of 2022. Okay. So here's the basic information here. Pluto returns happen about every 250 years. Most nations don't survive that long, but those that do undergo a massive transformation, often coupled with suffering. Our first Pluto return took place on February the 20th of 2022, but Pluto is going retrograde this year. So it will go back to the same place at 27 degrees of Capricorn in July. And then it will go forward again and hit it again in December. So this is going to be a Pluto-tastic year. And I always compare it to this. Pluto hit us this way. Now, today, it's hitting us that way. And now it's going to hit us that way again in December. And I want to talk really quick about when people have returns that have a retrograde like this, because not everybody does every time, but a great example is the Saturn return. Pluto runs on a 244-year cycle, but Saturn runs on a 29.5-year cycle. So a lot of people have multiple Saturn returns. When Saturn goes back to where it was when you were born on your first breath, it triggers the Saturn return. And what the planet Saturn is all about is your consequences. Whatever you've put out in the world, Saturn brings it back to you. It's like the karmic boomerang. So it has always been known as the Great Malefic because traditionally people throw bad stuff out into the world and then bad comes back to them when Saturn returns. But that doesn't always have to be the case. If you put out good, good will come back to you. So my friend recently had her second Saturn return, but then she actually had 3 in a row because of this retrograde situation with her Saturn. So what it looked like for her. So she natally, I believe, has Saturn in the 10th house. So that's going to deal with her job. And sure enough, it did deal with her job. Her Saturn return for this cycle went through and she started getting headhunted and people wanted her to take new jobs. They were trying to find her and find out if she'd be a good fit for these different jobs. When her second Saturn return hit a few months later, that's when she started to interview for all of these jobs. And then when the third Saturn return hit, so remember that one, people start asking if she might be interested in a new job. That one, she's interviewing for new jobs. That one, they decided to not take any new jobs. And my friend just decided to stay with her current life. But basically, when you get those 3 in a row, this retrograde situation with a return, it opens up a question that the native is expected to answer. And it's kind of like you can't move forward on in your life until a question is answered. And whatever the question is going to depend on your natal chart. For America, it's going to depend on America's natal chart. So Pluto, with our Pluto return, we're having this retrograde situation where we're having 3 Pluto returns in the course of a single year. And that's what makes this year so Pluto-tastic. Now, we're not expecting massive societal upheaval this exact year. What typically happens, and I've made a bunch of videos about this before, is the Pluto return happens, and then it takes about 12 years for things to kind of unravel and become whatever they become next. So, oh, 1 second. Here's my baby. Baby is here now. Say hello, baby. Hi. Okay. Hi, yeah, so silly. Okay. So it will take about 12 years for everything to unravel with this. So again, the rules, no going crazy, no panicking, but it is important to know that now is the time for spiritual and emotional I'm sorry, people, and mental preparation, because this stuff is unpredictable. We can look at the flavor of everything that's going on with the Pluto return, but we can't know the exact details. So this is what I was looking at early on when the first Pluto return happened in 2022, February 20th, 2022. This was the chart right here. And so we had the sun in the 8th house. That's this guy right here. So looking at possibly a transformation of leadership. Saturn over here is going to deal with the economy. We had Mars and Venus exact at 19 degrees in Capricorn. And I thought that was really interesting. And so how has that looked like in the past 20 weeks? Well, I think there has been a big focus on trans rights and things with just everything having to do with gender polarity has been a big focus of interest in the past couple of months, which really makes sense. Mars is masculine energy, Venus is feminine energy. We had this call to step up and take responsibility in society. And Chiron was showing us that our deepest soul wound was going to be a topic of interest during this time period. And I feel like there's been a lot of calls from a lot of corners for people to step up and take responsibility for, all sorts of different things. We had Pallas up there, so a big focus on the internet. And of course, the Pluto return took place with Pluto in the 7th house, shaking things up on a global alliance level. And that was the day, February the 20th, 2022, that the Russia-Ukraine conflict first began. So this is a really interesting thing going on here. There's Pluto. Mercury right there is going to deal with communications and especially the internet when it's in Aquarius. And Juno is going to deal with money. So death and rebirth involving alliances and communications and money. And I think that we have been seeing that to some degree or another. And so let's see. Oh yeah, we have Neptune up here next to the part of fortune. Neptune deals with collectivism. And we had the moon in Libra in the 4th house. And so a national focus on land and crops and farming. And I also think that that has been true with food and all of the things that we're taking a look at. So this is today's Pluto return right here, July 11th. And you can see that the sun is still in the 8th house. So we're still looking at an ongoing transition of leadership, whatever that will look like. And I don't know exactly what that would look like. And it's possible that we down here wouldn't always see what that transformation is. Just because sometimes on a national scale, like when a leader has a big thing happen to them personally, a regular person might not hear about that, right? We might not be aware of what transformations are taking place. And in the 8th house, the 8th house is the house of things that are hidden. And so it's possible that we can be seeing a transformation that would be hidden. Basically, we wouldn't see it. We wouldn't see what the transformation is. Mercury in the 8th house, what is going to happen that is not going to be communicated to us? And Venus in the 8th house, what money stuff will be hidden or transformed? Now, this is a really interesting thing right here because Venus is across from the moon. Here in the 2nd house, and the 2nd and 8th houses deal with money and stuff and resources. And so to have them be opposite from each other, it just makes me think we're probably going to have an emotional focus on money, and as a nation, an emotional focus on money. And we are going to see how, Venus represents money and the 2nd house represents money. Venus in the 8th house deals with transformation and hiding, and Venus in Gemini also can deal with things not as they seem. Gemini can present differently than it feels. A big question for Gemini is how to be authentic. And so we may be seeing an increased focus on how our money is not what it seems. And I feel like we're already seeing that as far as this hyperinflation situation, prices rising and that kind of thing. Is your money what it seems? Is a dollar what a dollar was 10 years ago, right? Can you buy the same stuff at the store with your dollar? Can you buy the same stuff for $10 that you could buy a year ago? And I'll just say, man, my kid asked for a Lunchable. I spent, it was three Lunchables for $10, and I couldn't even believe it. And she wasted one. And I just thought, oh my gosh, you can waste a Lunchable when Lunchables are $1, but it like really ticks me off when you're wasting them and they were $3.50, you know? So that is something to keep an eye on. Now, one interesting thing about this chart that I was noticing this morning, well, I'll come back to it, because this time around, between now and December 28th, look at this grand trine water. That's this blue triangle. And we have at the one end, the sun, our national identity. And down here, we have Neptune, which is the planet of collectivism, and Juno, which is the asteroid of money. And over here is our south node and our ascendant, both in Scorpio, dealing with other people's money and kind of the negative side of dealing with other people's money. And so how are we going to deal with other people's money, right, as a nation? And I would say other people's money, like in quotation marks, I would refer to that as also like taxpayer dollars, which, you know, anytime the government pays for something, it's not really the government, it's you and your money that you paid in. The government does not have any of its own money. It only has your money. And so all money that the government spends falls into this Scorpio and the eighth house region of other people's money. And so what kinds of things are we going to notice in the next couple of weeks until December 28th? What will we see involving taxpayer dollars and other people's money? And what will we not see? Because the tip of this triangle is in the eighth house, where things become hidden. And part of it is in Scorpio, which is also the sign of things being hidden. So it will be interesting to see what we do notice and what we don't notice. And the thing is, with all of this hidden information, is that we probably won't be super aware of what's actually happening. Instead, remember how I said that this is kind of like the beginning of a 12-year cycle, a 12-year situation. What's going to happen now is mostly probably going to happen behind closed doors. We won't be super consciously aware of what exactly is happening, but we will begin to feel the effects of it. And what happens right now up through December 28th, this is the time when someone at the top, and you know, maybe a bunch of people at the top, are going to be making decisions that are going to affect everybody in the nation, but we won't know exactly what those decisions are in every instance. We won't always be able to see their consequences immediately, but we will see them down the road, right? We're going to see them over the next 12 years, and this is the time where we're setting the stage. Basically in 2034, we will look back on 2022 and we'll say, oh yeah, okay, this is when this happened, this is when that happened, and this led to that, led to that, led to that. And we will see how the dominoes just started tipping over, but this is still one of the very beginning dominoes. So we don't even know what the rest of this domino structure looks like. And we're not going to know for 12 years. But now is when things are starting to get started. Let's see what else. Okay, we have Uranus in the seventh house, which is going to deal with alliance shakeups. So whatever is going on the global stage, how is the United States interacting with other nations? We can expect some surprises, expecting the unexpected. And the thing that we need to understand is that whenever something unexpected happens, we have to know that our North Node is right there too. This is like our destiny, is to experience some unexpected things involving money and involving, the word coming into my mind is the foreign entanglements, right? This is the house of foreign entanglements. So we'll just have to see what it is. Now, this is the presentation that I made for a lecture that I gave some time ago. But this morning I was sitting here and looking at this chart again. And this time what I noticed was Jupiter. And do you see right here, there's no line connecting to Jupiter. Jupiter is not aspecting anything. And that really stood out to me. Jupiter deals with money and luck and blessings, and Jupiter is not aspecting anything at all. And it just made me feel like, oh boy, oh boy, like if it's true that America's luck and blessings and all of the good stuff is not touching anything that's going on, this could be a really interesting time frame that we're entering into right now. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out with Chiron right here, right next to the part of fortune. The part of fortune also deals with money, and Chiron deals with our deepest soul wound. And here they are right next to each other in Aries, which is the energy of conflict. So possible conflicts over money, we'll just have to see. But I think that a lot of us can already see it. I'm in a bunch of groups on Facebook, and in a lot of the groups that I'm in right now, in one group in particular, every day you see posts from people that say, oh, I can't afford to buy groceries. Can somebody just Venmo me? Or like, here's my Venmo. Can somebody help me? All of these people that are really struggling. There's all these moms saying, I can't afford to buy the groceries that we need. So what can I do to work from home? What can I do to supplement my income? And so many people are stressed out and freaking out. And this is just the beginning of that. And so we're just going to have to see what happens next with it. So the rule is that we cannot panic. The divine wants to care for all of us. So can we trust our creator to lead us and guide us and provide for us? Even when the economy is having a problem, can we trust that God is going to make sure that our needs are met? Guess what? People have to trust that they will be taken care of. And if we don't trust, we're not taken care of. What does that mean? It means that a lot of people will probably not be as well taken care of as they wish that they were, because they don't trust that they're going to be taken care of. This is the time for us to build our trust in our creator, so that we can be taken care of. Okay. And it is also the time to be wise in what we are doing to make sure that we can be taken care of. I was talking to somebody who really opposes the concept of food storage. And he said, well, I feel like food storage is something that you would buy out of fear instead of out of faith. And I choose faith. And I just thought, well, that is a really interesting take, because I kind of feel like if you have the money to spend on some food that could help you in a time of need, it would be faith to use that money wisely. Like if it felt like something that you felt like God was telling you to do, I feel like it makes sense to spend that money on food storage, but whatever, that is fine. Everybody needs to do what they feel is the right choice for them. And we need to remember that this is all in the divine plan. This is about more than just conspiracies. There's something much greater at work than just the workings of men. And this is the truth of what is reflected in the stars. We are going through something much bigger than we can see. You know, even with the stars, there is so much more going on with them than we can consciously understand. So let's see, I had another one I wanted to show you. Okay, so with the buildup to this first Pluto return, so I have to mention that let's see. Okay, on January the 12th of 2020, Pluto and Saturn went exact at 22 degrees of Capricorn, along with the Sun, Ceres, and Mercury. And nothing happened on that date, but astrologers were expecting big upheaval with death and rebirth of government, authoritarian, and tyranny. Mercury deals with communication, and Ceres deals with harvests and the food supply and supply chain issues. And so we had this big alignment on January the 12th of 2020, and nothing happened on that day. But by April 20th, it was clear that the world had changed in a very big way. I think we can all agree. And we did see problems with censorship, the supply chain, authoritarianism, tyranny, and lockdown. And it was all there in the stars. But first, we had this little moment of silence, right? We had a couple of weeks between January the 12th and March where, quote unquote, nothing was happening. And a lot was happening behind the scenes, but we just couldn't see it. We couldn't see it. And so this is from a lecture that I gave in, I believe, March of this year. And so this was after the first Pluto return. And I had been looking at this 2 weeks to stop the spread, because I thought, okay, how interesting. We had this big conjunction that was considered the prelude to the Pluto return on January the 12th of 2020. And then we had, quote unquote, nothing. And then we had, the 2 weeks to stop the spread, right? We had 2 weeks to stop the spread. That's what they said. And of course, it became this whole big thing. But what I have been finding in my research, as I've been reading a bunch about astrology for nations, with big astrological events, there's usually a period of silence. And then I call it the 2 weeks to stop the spread, which is the moment where things are getting real and we're passing the point of no return. So as I was figuring out what was going on in earlier this year, I felt that we had our 2 weeks of silence in February 20th, from February the 20th, 2022 to early March, and that we had started at the beginning of stopping the spread, 2 weeks to stop the spread in March of 2021. And these are a bunch of memes that showed up in my feed that day, the day that I thought, what is our lockdown now? Here it is. If everyone just doesn't drive for 2 weeks, we can flatten the curve. That's what I saw. And I thought, oh, that's it. We're in the middle of 2 weeks to stop the spread right now. March 2021, not allowed to travel more than 5 miles. March 2022, can't afford to travel more than 5 miles. A whole different ball game, right? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Gas prices so high, even the Rona stopped traveling. Wow. Okay, so we entered a new form of lockdown, which was rooted in the inflation of the money supply, which led to higher prices. So I wrote this in March. At the time, we were still buying 600,000 barrels of oil from Russia daily. Sorry, guys. Come here, you weirdo. Come here. Okay. And we saw prices rising everywhere. And we still are. And we're seeing right now that we are having a reckoning of value. We have to ask, what are things worth? What are people worth? What is peace worth? What is liberty worth? What is food worth? These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And these are going to be big questions of this Pluto return for the United States. What are things worth? What are people worth? What is food worth? What are the necessities of life worth? What are the necessities of life? What did we think? What did we think was necessary, but it will turn out not to be necessary as things are kind of stripped away and we're left with whatever is left. Okay, and so it reminds me of something that I read about Pluto just this morning, which was that this person, this astrologer, and I can't remember who it was, but they said that Pluto is like the gardener who cuts off pieces of a tree that are dead. You know, Pluto, it's the planet of death and rebirth. And this person compared Pluto to the pruner who's pruning off dead branches so that new life can grow in that place. And it said when Pluto is up to whatever Pluto's up to, you know that what it's up to is getting rid of what is dead so that new things can be born in that space. And I loved that analogy. And I thought of, you know, the United States government, and I thought of everything going on in it. You know, if Pluto is there to root out what is dead, what is corrupt, what needs to go, what will be left of that, right? Like what will be left? Because as far as I can see, even our local governments are full of corruption. Like the tree is corrupt from the root to the tip of the leaves, and Pluto is here to start pruning. And it will probably not be fun because there's kind of a lot to prune. So let's pull up that chart again. I need to share it. Share. Okay, so this is the energy that we're going to be dealing with up until December the 28th. And one thing that I wanted to really point out is this yod right here, the finger of God. That's this triangle here with these dotted lines involving our Pluto. That is the whole purpose of this chart. And Neptune in Pisces on the other side, which is, again, an energy that deals with collectivism, socialism, basically like, yeah, collective, how are we spending our collective wealth, and what, it's the energy of taking things and assigning them to the collective, I guess. And it's in retrograde, and Pluto's in retrograde too. A lot of big retrogrades here. And what that is saying is that there's going to be a lot of conflict I mean, that's what typically yods feel like with this in conjunct here to whatever they're pointing at. It feels like conflict and how to balance whatever the ends of the triangle are up to. And so what we see here is Leo pointing at the top of the chart. And so that's kind of our true selves. Leo is like your true self. How are we going to find our true selves? Well, we're going to have to deal with issues of collectivism and issues involving business and the transformation of the economy. And all these retrogrades just make it so it doesn't look like it's going to be that pretty, but it will probably take a national stage, whatever we go through. This also is an interesting placement because the third house actually deals with shipping. Okay, shipping, transportation. And here we have Saturn in Aquarius in retrograde and Pluto in Capricorn in retrograde. So to me, that's saying a transformation of shipping stuff, like, can be related to that. It'll just be interesting to see what this looks like with the supply chain. And when we come back to this in another 6 months, will we look back and have new lessons to glean from the fact that Saturn was here within a degree of, this is called the IC, the Ilioceli, man in retrograde. Just a really, really interesting placement. And look, it's even trine that Venus that's going to deal with money and what is authentic, what is not authentic with our money, what is being hidden about our money, right? So, so we'll just have to see how it all plays out. I don't know how it will play out. We'll just take a look and find out for ourselves. You know, I'm reading a book on mundane astrology right now by a guy who, an astrologer who was really annoyed at all of the astrologers way back in the day who couldn't predict World War I or II. Like, they just had no idea that these wars were coming. And so he wrote this book on how could something so massive take place and nobody saw it coming. And so I'm not done with this book, but it is a really interesting read. And I can't even remember the name right now, but I will tell you the overall book is called Mundane Astrology. I think that's what it's called, just Mundane Astrology. I got it on Amazon and it's 3 old books all in one. And it probably cost me $50 and it's out of print and you have to buy it in paperback from a used bookseller or something. And it's all the old kind of book where it's like photocopied and it's a book and it's all in a terrible font. But anyway, so if you want to buy it for yourself, that's what you have to do. That's how you have to find it. But I'm really interested to see what I can glean from that and what we're going to see next with this situation, because I think a lot of people are feeling that we're on this roller coaster. And to be honest, I feel like we've already turned the corner of the roller coaster. You know, for all these years, I felt like we were going to the top of the roller coaster, and I feel like now we're going down. I don't know if you've heard of the Griffin roller coaster from Busch Gardens, but I was just in Busch Gardens a few weeks ago and I rode it. It's a great roller coaster. You go all the way up and then at the tip of the roller coaster, it just stops. And it just like, you just look down at the ground below you, like facing down, and then it lets you go. And I kind of feel like we're about there. You know, we're at the top, we're looking down, and we've kind of already started this downhill slope. So we're just going to have to see how it plays out. And I don't know exactly how it will be. You know, I had a lot of thoughts about how the past 20 weeks would go since the first Pluto return. And a lot of the things that I guessed would happen didn't happen, you know? And so this time around, I don't really feel qualified to make a bunch of guesses. But we are looking at the flavors, right? We're looking at these different flavors, and we're just going to have to see how they show up for us in the weeks to come. And I'll keep you posted on what I'm noticing, and I guess we'll just see. But thanks for watching. Happy second Pluto return. Remember that God has it all under control. You know, it doesn't excuse us from doing our part. We need to do what we can to be ready for anything. And again, hopefully the worst that happens is we all win the lottery and we have fabulous lives, but even lottery winners have a terrible time with winning the lottery if they're not emotionally prepared for it. Whatever is coming up for us, we need to be emotionally prepared for it, even if it's a good thing, possibly, especially if it's a good thing, so that we don't sabotage it ourselves. So that is all I have to say to you today. I hope that you have a really good day, and we'll talk to you later.